Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar, the HUBZone Certification Overview. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator. And today I'm joined by James Forrest, one of our fantastic procurement specialists, to cover the HUBZone certification for you. But we are also joined by some very special guests. First, Heather Lucy, the District Director of the SBA Sacramento District Office. Heather is responsible for providing the leadership and management, but also champions small business resources and outreach programs. But I'm not going to go into the resources. I would love to have Heather go ahead and let you know how SBA can support your business and your goals.
Thanks so much, Amanda. It's really a pleasure to be here today. Welcome to the audience. Thank you for joining us. I know that James has a great presentation dialed in for you, and I can't wait to see all the questions that come in through the chat. So a little bit about the U.S. Small Business Administration. We are a federal agency. Our administrator sits at the cabinet level. So we've got a direct line to the president and to all of the initiatives that are going on around the country. With that said, the SBA was founded back in 1953 with the sole purpose of supporting small businesses, and that is to help them start, grow, expand into new markets, or to recover after disasters. We have a vast resource partner network. And all of the services that we provide to the public relating to small businesses are at no cost. They're all prepaid by your tax dollars. So I would encourage you to utilize all of the resources that are available. We have the volunteers and mentors through SCORE. And that's SCORE, SCORE, and it's to assist small businesses in anything that they would need. Business model canvas, trying to create a business plan, anything that you would need relating to mentoring with respect to experts in each of those arenas. I'll put some of the links in the chat afterwards. But that's one of the resource partners. Then we have our women's business centers. And those, even though they're called the Women's Business Center, they serve both male and female clients. Then we have the Veterans Business Outreach Center. So if we have any veterans in the audience, first of all, thank you for your service. It's wonderful that you put your life on the line for us each and every day. And we really, really thank you for your service. Then the small business development centers, and that's probably the biggest network that we have here in Northern California. We've got 18 centers around Northern California, and the small business development centers can help you with anything that you need, from creating a business plan to market research to federal contracting opportunities to accessing capital for your small business. They're just a great, great resource. And they are actually housed through Cal Poly Humboldt. So we're thrilled about Cal Poly Humboldt being the lead center for our SBDC network. The SBA offers many different products and services to assist small businesses. I mentioned disaster assistance, and we help in times of disasters, and whether that be fires or floods or droughts or the pandemic. It's a program that can assist businesses in mitigating the gap that you might have between any insurance and any losses that you potentially had incurred. So we assist also with mitigation and trying to figure out what's the best way for you to mitigate any type of losses before they occur. So I would encourage you to look on SBA's website. It's simply sba.gov for disaster assistance programs. The counseling programs that I just referred to through our resource partner network are probably the best known of the services provided by SBA. But I would say second best known, at least, would be our funding programs. And keeping in mind that we do not lend directly to small businesses other than in times of disasters. We offer different programs called 7A and 504. You really don't need to know that. What you do need to know is that SBA is here to assist you. Many times, banks, credit unions, any type of lenders are going to either want a loan fully collateralized or uh, different requirements that perhaps a startup or somebody that's entering a new market isn't able to accomplish. And SBA steps in on the back end to mitigate the risks of any lending institution. So lending is probably what you're looking for. And if you're not looking for it now, you're going to look for it down the road, or you have in the past. So please consider SBA loan products so that we can get you to that yes from no. I'll close with our federal contracting programs. SBA is, I would equate it to kind of the policing agency for the federal government when it comes to federal contract set-asides. And we ensure that small businesses are represented and we meet the federal set-asides for each agency. With that, we've got HUBZone certification, which James is going to talk about today. Women-owned certification. We've got an 8A program, which is really a business development program that expands for a 9-year time frame, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once you get into that program, if you withdraw or get out for any reason, there's no chance for re-entry. So I would encourage you to look at the 8A program. We work with federal contractors every day, contracting officers, and do kind of matchmaking with respect to the small businesses that are in our portfolio, and make the connections necessary for you as a small business to gain access to those set-aside programs. We also have the Veterans CERT program, many different contracting programs. Again, SBA.gov will lead you to all of the information that you need to know. And again, I will put the links into our resource partners in the chat. So Amanda, James, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the presentation.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today, Heather. I know the SBA has so many different resources for small businesses and beyond. So it's amazing that we could have you here to speak about those resources and make all of these businesses aware of it. So thank you so much for your time. And then before we get into the bulk of the presentation, I do want to let you all know a little bit about Norcal APEX Accelerator and the National APEX Accelerator program and how we can support your government contracting goals. So the APEX Accelerator program is a federally or a nationwide network of over 96 centers that are funded by federal, state, and local government grants to help provide your business with education and training so that you can do government contracting. And the best part, because we are funded by the government that wants to contract with you, all of our resources are available to you at absolutely no cost. No matter what center you go to, no matter where you are in the nation, you can find no cost government contracting resources at your local APEX Accelerator Center. But what exactly does that assistance look like? Next slide, please. Thank you. So that assistance can vary from center to center, but at Norcal APEX Accelerator, we offer our assistance through 3 main pillars. First, our one-on-one counseling, where if you are within our Northern California service area and you sign up with us as a client, you can get paired with a procurement specialist just like James or one of the other amazing procurement specialists we have on staff. And they'll meet with you one-on-one over Zoom to help you with anything regarding government contracting, from helping you do the initial market research so you know what agencies are buying your products or services, to helping you get your certifications like HUBZone or 8A and applying for that 8A program. We also help with anything regarding to solicitations, from helping you interpret a solicitation you want to bid on to helping you review your bid to make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. And we can even help after you win your first contract with contract compliance and making sure all of that paperwork is being submitted timely. Another great resource that we offer is our custom bid matching software. Now, this is a software that our clients get access to for absolutely free. However, our program pays for it. It's quite an expensive software, but the value we're able to offer our clients is immeasurable. What this software does is it allows you to sit down with your procurement specialist, with your counselor, and define the criteria that you're looking for in a good solicitation for your business. Maybe you can only provide services or ship products to a certain geographic location. Or maybe you have such an innovative product that the product name itself would be something you're looking for in the solicitation. Your counselor can sit down with you and help you define all of these criteria. And then we put it into this software, which scrapes federal, state, and local procurement sites for solicitations that meet that criteria. And it emails them directly to you. Imagine getting good opportunities for your business directly to your inbox a few times a week. It's a fantastic resource that we are very, very happy we're able to offer to our clients. And our third pillar of assistance is one you're actually taking advantage of right now. We put on a ton of trainings, both in person and virtual, throughout the year, covering topics like certification overviews, or maybe you want to know about subcontracting and how you can do that effectively. Or maybe you're looking for a bit of help reviewing a solicitation. We'll have webinars and trainings covering those topics and many more throughout the year. But we also host a robust website with links and resources ready for you to explore on your own. And the best part is both our trainings and our websites are available to you whether you're in our service area or not. They're a free, accessible resource for you no matter where you are in the world or where you are in your government contracting journey. But if you have not had a chance to sign up with your local APEX Accelerator, or if you're within our service area and have not had a chance to connect with Norcal APEX Accelerator, please do so. It's an absolutely free resource that can support your business and your government contracting goals. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to James to hop into the HUBZone Certification Overview.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda, and thanks, Heather. Hope you all can hear me all right and are having a good morning. We're going to jump right into it. So here's the agenda. We're going to be talking about HUBZone today. It's going to go by pretty quickly. The idea is just to kind of pique your interest, give you some basic information, and you can follow up by reaching out to us or your local Apex or doing your own research, but really hope that you'll work with us or whatever Apex Center you're near to go through. We can really hold your hand through this whole process. So it'll be a lot of information a little bit at a time, but we're going to start with a general program overview, what the program is, some of the benefits that it could give you or contractors that get for this, eligibility criteria, so how do you actually qualify. We're going to go over how to read the map, the different types of hub zones that there are, some things about the certification application, an overview of how to navigate it, as well as some information on glitches and things that have troubled some users in the last few months of the new application. Problems with applications that people submit. So documentation issues, errors, miscalculations, things that folks maybe accidentally go through when they're submitting an SBA application. And then just a little bit about maintaining status and finding HUBZone opportunities in the government, which is a whole nother can of worms. So see if I can get my arrow keys to start working for this. All right. program overview is our first stop here. A HUBZone is a very unique SBA certification. So if you don't know already, HUBZone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. And this is the only SBA certification that doesn't depend at all on the socioeconomic status of the owners. So WOSB, you have to be a woman, veteran-owned small business, or the service-disabled veteran-owned small business. It has to be owned by veterans. 8A is a disadvantaged business program certification that Heather talked about. The only qualification is that 51% of the ownership must be by U.S. citizens. That could be either direct ownership through individuals or through entities. So that's kind of the only qualification there as far as who the owner is. It is based on geography alone, so you don't need to submit financials and all of that stuff. You need to submit a lot of documents, but you don't need to submit financials proving that you're under a certain cap of personal income or anything like that. It's just where your business is and where your employees live. It is focused on regions that meet one of many official criteria for some form of economic disadvantage. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time today going into every single different type of hub zone, how they're designated, how governors can petition the SBA to include them. I don't think that's particularly relevant for small businesses. You're either in a hub zone or you're not. But the interesting thing for us is it's uniquely applicable to businesses located in rural areas. It's really the only certification that goes after that audience specifically. There are hub zones all over the place, though. You'll find them in the middle of cities. They can be very small. They can be one city block. So you can have a business that's in a hub zone and across the street's not a hub zone. Or it can be dozens of counties. Most of Northern California is a hub zone, for instance, where we're doing this presentation today. So what is HUBZone? Let's go over some of the basics first.
Hey, James.
Yeah, what's up?
Sorry to interrupt, but it looks like chat might be having a bit of difficulty hearing you.
Interesting.
If you could just maybe lean in a little bit more or maybe adjust your mic audio, whichever you feel is easiest.
Let me see. Let me jump over here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, my Zoom does this weird thing. It always defaults the audio to the lowest gain settings. I'm assuming that's better now.
It sounds better to me. How's it feeling, folks in chat, in audience? Is that sounding better?
I think so. I think it'll be good. Okay.
Perfect.
Hopefully I won't need to repeat anything. So HUBZone certification, it's a formal certification. So in the past, there used to be more self-certifications where you basically go check a box. There's things like the Small Disadvantaged Business Certification in SAM.gov. It's just a box you check. This is not that. This is a fairly extensive formal certification with a review process, waiting period, and then recertification processes as well. This applies only to federal government contracting, not for local or state or private contracting, generally speaking. Now, there may be some exceptions to this, but those are exceptions to the rule. But there are benefits for both priming and subbing. But so priming means if you're doing business directly with the government, subbing means if you are doing business on a government contract, but you're contracted with the prime contractor. So you're not directly doing business with the government. And this would only apply on certain federal contract jobs where HUBZone goals are flowed down to subcontractors or to primes to pick subcontractors who are HUBZone certified. So if you're not looking for that, if you're just looking for a feather to put in your cap to attract private customers, this isn't the certification for you. It's a lot of work to get into. You have to maintain it. So, sometimes I get clients who just want to get a certification just because they are eligible for it. And that is not the way that I suggest going about certifications, because effectively there are just too many certifications out there that you could get. So I think of certifications like a tool that fits a certain purpose. So, you have the right size wrench for the right size bolt. And that's kind of what HUBZone is like, just like with any other SBA certification. It was launched in '99. The idea is to fuel the development of distressed communities by providing small businesses preferential access to government contracts. So the goal of the federal government, I'm going to mention this again, is to award 3% of all procurements to HUBZone certified small businesses. via set-asides and price awards. We're going to talk about what that means in a second. You become certified by locating in and employing residents. At least 35% of your employees need to reside in hub zones. We're going to talk more about that as well. And the idea is that the community will benefit if government contracts and subcontracts are awarded to HUBZone eligible businesses. More of your tax dollars flowing back in your community, which is what we are all about here at Apex and the SBA. Speaking of the SBA, Small Business Administration, they are the ones that regulate and implement the HUBZone program. They determine which businesses are eligible. They maintain a nice listing of qualified HUBZone firms to fulfill procurement opportunities. So anybody can look through this database. It's not, that's what I love about government contracting. Almost everything's above board. You can go and look things online, especially in the federal government. There's this website called dsbs.sba.gov, the dynamic small business search. You can go there, and on one of the options under certifications or set aside types, you can click on HUBZone, and you will see HUBZone certified businesses. And they deal with protests. So hopefully you won't be subject to any protests, but it's good, and we're not going to cover it too much today, but it's good to be aware of that they are the ones that handle all of that. Okay, so what are some of the benefits? We've touched on a little bit. I said that there's a 3% goal. Remember, this is just for federal contract dollars. But they've never actually reached this goal. They do their best, but there's a lot of challenges with finding HUBZone. And the HUBZone program in the past was more difficult than it is now to maintain certification and to go through the process. The closest they came was the most recent data we have from FY23. They did 2.78. So that's pretty much there if we round up. It's the highest yet, and I'm hoping it keeps getting higher as time goes on. So just the goal is kind of this overarching emphasis on really any contract that they, if they can award it to a HUBZone or another socioeconomic set aside, they want to do that to reach their goals. They get scorecards. Every agency gets a scorecard, kind of telling them how well they did on their goals, and it does matter. But what's the actual teeth? What actually makes it happen? Mandates these benefits to HUBZones? Well, for one thing, contract set asides. That's the main thing. There are certain set-asides. If a procurement opportunity meets a certain set of criteria, then the government agency, doesn't have to be just the SBA, any government agency in the federal government will create a set-aside, meaning only HUBZone certified firms can apply for this. Now, if they don't get any applications from HUBZone firms, then they'll have to cancel the set-aside and make it full and open. But they can sole source it if there's a limited opportunity to receive contract bids. If there's not that many HUBZone bidders on a project, for instance, if there's just one, they can go ahead and sole source it in certain situations. That means that it is a non-competitive bid in essence. And outside of contract set-asides and sole sources, there's actually a full and open price preference. So there's a 10% price preference evaluation, which only applies against 10 large businesses. So the way this works is not if it's a small business set aside or a HUBZone set aside, but if it's full and open competition, meaning anybody can bid on it, including large businesses. If you bid $100 on per unit and a large business bids $95, they will consider your bid as if it's $90 and you will win, even though the government is going to end up paying slightly more for that product or service. They want to incentivize HUBZone firms to get a leg up over large competition. It doesn't work against other small businesses, even if they're not HUBZone certified. And the last is subbing. And like as I mentioned before, it's not just for prime contracting. If there's they have the 3% goal, and there's certain stipulations within contracts that that they need to look out for or hire HUBZone subs. So a lot of large businesses will evaluate or manage these big contracts, and then they go out and find subcontractors. So if you're HUBZone certified, it can make you more appealing to prime contractors who are doing work on eligible federal contracts. So that's good news for you. Here's the overview, the very broad kind of 1,000-foot view of how the program works. So first, determine eligibility, and that's up to you. That's something you can work with your APEX Accelerator about. I mean, all of this is, but we're going to talk a little bit about eligibility today. You're going to gather documentation. It usually takes a while, and make sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. You're going to fill in the online application after you create an account on the website. I'm going to show you in a bit. You're going to fill in the whole application and go ahead and submit. You're going to wait. They're supposed to do the review within 60 days. In practice, you never really know when you're going to hear back from the reviewer at first. And when they do email or call, they will expect a response pretty quickly, usually within a few business days. So answer those SBA queries quickly. Have, if you're going to be out of town, make sure to have someone else monitoring your email that you used for this program. And then ideally, in the end, you're going to receive the determination. And if you get it, then you're going to receive the benefits of certification. It'll show up in the dynamic small business search. And when you apply for contracts, you'll get these nice benefits that we mentioned. So that's the overall idea of how it works. And I could end the presentation here. These two sources are actually pretty clear. This really will tell you just about everything you need to know about HUBZone. The first is the 13 CFR, Chapter 1, Part 126, the Code of Federal Regulations. This kind of tells you everything you need to know about eligibility, the map, the things. I'm going to talk about it next page. And the second is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, Part 19, Subpart 19.13. So these two sources will answer just about every question. They have enough helpful explanations, examples about how to apply eligibility criteria, etc. And just a quick note, the Federal Acquisition Regulation is actually a part of the Code of Federal Regulations. So this image is a little misleading, but it's certainly a huge, huge document. But this one page is pretty simple. Got great definitions and all kinds of stuff. So this is the CFR. It's the main overview. It's going to give you definitions. I'm going to keep hammering this point. The definitions are crucial. If you don't know about this resource and you're wondering about definitions, then you're really going to miss out on an important part of HUBZone certification. It's going to tell you about how they update the map, the HUBZone map. It's going to give you details and certification requirements, ownership and affiliate information. Affiliates is, if you have another company that's related to yours or another company that you own, whether they need to count those employees as well when they're doing all the calculations, and how the SBA does the review process and how to maintain your certification. So very, very important. And then the FAR part, the Federal Acquisition Regulation part here, is more about how to use it and how it applies to federal contracting procedures. So you'll see applicability, set-aside procedures, sole source awards, price evaluation preference, limitations on subcontracting and contract laws. So please check those out. I put the links on the page before. Okay, so we're going to jump into eligibility criteria here. You need to be a small business. It's an SBA program. That's no surprise. What that means is you need to have under the income cap averaged over the last 3 to 5 years within that NAICS code that you're primarily operating with. You need to be owned and controlled by at least 51% U.S. citizens or entities owned by U.S. citizens. Your principal office, and we'll talk about what that means, but a principal office needs to be located within a designated hub zone, and we'll look at maps soon. And at least 35% of your employees must reside in hub zones. Yes, that's their home address, where they go to sleep at night, what's written on their driver's license. And I want to note that different rules that are more kind of expansive and allow different things to go on apply for tribal governments, Alaska Native corporations, community development corporations, and small agricultural cooperatives. Just for the sake of simplicity, I only have about 30-40 minutes today. I'm not going to go into all of those variations. You can read it in that part that I put before, and it's also linked here when it gets the slides. A couple definitions that are important, in fact, crucial for determining eligibility. First, who's an employee? Here's the definition from that page. It's actually pretty clear. It says it's any individual employed on a full-time, part-time, or other basis so long as they work a minimum of 10 hours per week in the 4-week period immediately prior to the relevant data review. So that's the basics of it. In the next sentence, they're basically saying they can bend that rule a little bit as long as they work 40 hours in that 4-week period, and there's some reason why they worked less than 10 hours in a week. But some people ask me, oh, this employee only works 20 hours. Do they count as half or something like that? Absolutely not. If they're over 10 hours per week in that month before, so they're not looking over years and years, they're looking in that month before. So it kind of takes this freeze frame of your employee situation in the month before SBA certification, and then they'll use that to determine eligibility. So anyone who works over 40 hours per month, 10 hours per week, it's not a hard and fast rule in certain situations. They need to be doing meaningful work, meaning it's directly related to what you do as a company. It can't include volunteers. So if your cousin's doing, putting in some work for you for free, that's probably not going to count. However, the exception to that is if you're an owner and you're not getting paid, you're not on payroll, you'll still count as an employee. They want to count you. Bona fide independent contractors, so if they're truly independent, they're not going to be considered employees. But just because they're 1099s doesn't necessarily mean they're excluded from this calculation as employees. So that's something that's going to be up to the SBA to determine. If they do something a job that's pretty much what your other employees do, they're crucial to the business. If you have a lot of oversight of them, then they may consider them employees, and you'll have to incorporate them into this 35% calculation and the principal office calculation as well. Okay, so principal office, it sounds pretty intuitive, right? But they have a specific definition. A principal office is the location where the greatest number of the concerns. When they say a concern, it's not concern like I'm concerned, something's concerning. The concern means small business. So they mean the business applicant is how I would translate that into plain English. So it's the greatest number of the business's employees at any one location perform that work. So count up all the eligible employees by their definition, and then assign them where do they do most of their work. So we'll look at some definitions in the next one. So it's the greatest number, not the plurality. And remember, it's still the 4 weeks before applying. And just to note, that's not the same as a majority. So maybe you don't have one location where 51% of your employees work, but you've got a variety of one. You've got, you've got 13 employees and 3 work at one office, 3 work at another, and 4 work at another. Well, the one where the 4 worked, that's going to be your principal office. Employees who work most of their time at job sites are not counted toward the PO calculation at all. So that's you have to work at least 50% at a certain location that you own. It must be leased or owned by your company. You need to be able to document that with things like utility bills, lease agreements, deeds, etc. That's important. And it's not necessarily the headquarters. So where your headquarters is, that may not be where most of your employees work. Maybe you have a manufacturing business and you have an admin office that you consider your headquarters. It's what's written on your SAM registration, on your IRS, etc. But your principal office might be the actual manufacturing site where most of the employees work, because there's 3 admin people, 2 owners, but then you've got 10 folks working in the factory. So just go by their definition. Don't use your intuition on this. Okay, so what actually is a HUBZone? And let me just to put a pin on that. Those definitions, again, this is just like a little taste of it. We can get into all kinds of examples in a counseling session, or if you go look at that CFR page, they have examples about how to make determinations in different situations. It can get complicated with job site employees. It can get complicated with remote work employees. So I just want to make that clear that it's not meant to cover every possible case. It's just kind of get you started here. So this is what the US map of all the hub zones currently, as of May 2025, looks like right now. You can see different colors, different regions. If it's not colored in, it's not a hub zone. So I pointed at some of the hub zones here, but they're really everywhere. And you can see they get very tiny and they can be very big over here, including entire counties. There is a link here. This is the maps. It's maps.certify.sba.gov. And I love this tool. It's very easy to use. It's very clear. It's very interactive. It's neat. It gives you a ton of useful information. But honestly, for most of you, you're just going to use it to go type in your address, and it'll tell you very clearly if you're in a qualified hub zone or not. But just to note, if they're, the red sections are qualified non-metropolitan counties, dark blue is qualified census tracts. Doesn't really make much of a difference for you in the everyday use. Light blue is going to be Indian land, Native American lands. And then there's also qualified base closures, disaster areas, governor designated areas. And if you click on a place, it'll tell you if it's qualified or not, what the designation is, and a little bit of information on when it's going to be evaluated next. You'll see striped areas here. These are interesting. They are redesignated. And when they're redesignated, they have a 3-year clock that starts clicking, starts ticking. And at the end of that 3 years, they will be removed. And so in that interim period, you will see them striped like this. Different stripes mean different things, but basically it means that they are probably going to expire during that next evaluation period. So that if you're certifying as a hub zone, just keep in mind that it might mean that if you're in one of these redesignated periods, areas that you might actually not qualify as a hub zone once that evaluation date pops up. So these are just a couple pop outs here. Most of rural Northern California, north of Sonoma, is a hub zone. You'll see all of this red area. These are all rural county designations. So our office is up in Humboldt. Pretty much everything nearby here is in a hub zone. You'll see over here, this is a little pop out of Shasta County. Shasta County is kind of like a missing bite in this map because actually they do pretty well on federal contracting, but you will see certain regions around Redding that are included as a hub zone as well. So just pay close attention where you are. And it's kind of fun to poke around this map. You'll see if we zoom in on a metropolitan area like the Bay Area, it's much sparser. It's not really the main bread and butter of the hub zone. Your Bay Area is famously affluent. They get plenty of contracts, but there are regions, and you can see they can be pretty small, a couple city blocks that are hub zones: San Jose, Palo Alto, San Francisco, Alameda. So just kind of take a look there and be sure that you don't discount it just because you're in the Bay Area. Okay, let's look at the application. So before you begin, you first want to make sure that you qualify. So can you maintain your principal office requirements? So they're only going to look at the beginning at the first 4 weeks before your application. But you need to recertify every year. So can you maintain your principal office requirement where most employees do their work? Is that going to be a hub zone in next year? Can you maintain the 35% employee residency requirement? So remember, if an employee quits, moves, or even if you hire a new employee, let's say that's out of a hub zone, this can immediately affect your eligibility for maintaining hub zone. You have to notify the SBA right away if there's any material changes that might affect your status. So that's very important. If you're real close to the threshold, that's something you're really going to want to think about and do some analysis on. And number 2, have you examined and gathered the documentation required? This is a big one. They have a new site that I'm going to talk about in a second. The new site has a very helpful page here. They've got an application preview, which I love. You can come in and take a look at certain parts of the HUBZone application. And then they've got the required documents page. It's got 2 parts. One is general overview, kind of the control, ownership and control documents you need to gather, things like birth certificates, passports. And then part 2 is going to be program specific documentation. And all this is dependent on whether you're a sole proprietor, a limited liability company, a corporation, etc. There's different documents that are required. You can find all of those on this page here. We've got the link that's ready, but I would just go to certifications.sba.gov and click on prepare, and you'll see everything you need. Just want to give you a couple examples of the types of documents you need. It's fairly extensive for HUBZone because they have a lot of things they need to prove. So for ownership and control, they might need things like birth certificates and passports, as I mentioned. But for other HUBZone related reasons, they'll need payroll records, perhaps leases, deeds, utility bills that are dated accurately, operating agreements, bylaws, meeting minutes, driver's licenses, etc. So yeah, that is one thing to note. They will need some sort of government issued proof of employee's address. So gathering all your employees' driver's licenses might take some time. You can contact us or your local Apex for some help reviewing all of this documentation to make it so that when you go to upload it into the application, that you know that it is the right stuff. As I mentioned, there's a new website, SBA certifications.sba.gov. You can go there right now and take a look. This is what the home page looks like. And it's overall pretty helpful. The idea is that they took a bunch of different certification applications that, all the 8A, VOSB, SDVOSB, EDWOSB, WOSB, all of those, HUBZone, and they all used to be on different websites, and some of them were really out of date, some of them were better, but and then if you wanted to apply for multiple, you completely separate processes. They rolled them all into one nice looking new website. And it just kind of replaces all these different processes with one. And they've done a lot in the last few years to reduce the complexity of these certifications, especially HUBZone, where historically they had a really hard time getting everyone to get certified for this. This is, in theory, and I do think it will be good someday, but I need to be honest from the perspective of a business and a business counselor. In practice, the website has been pretty difficult to use since it launched in, I think, October, November last year, mostly due to glitches. And I think these are going to be ironed out, but it is, I will be honest with you, a pretty frustrating process because of the number of glitches at this time of presentation. So when you sign into the portal, it can be a struggle with errors and misdirects to dead-end legacy portals. I'll talk about that more in a second. When you log out and log back in with different SBA accounts, I've seen this a couple times. It can lead to the system confusing which account is claiming the business. So even though you've logged out of one account and you've logged back into a different, and then you go to claim your business, the SBA website will still think you're logged into the old account, and it'll import all your information from SAM, even if it's not the right owner, right, not the right company. So that's a pretty serious issue. A lot of times when you get to your portal dashboard on the certification website, it's just blank and there's no way to get it back. You can't refresh, you can't go back or forward. The only thing to do then is to log out and log back in. And if that doesn't work, you need to switch browsers. And eventually it will work. And there's also error 404, 505, page not found errors. The HUBZone calculator is once you're past all of this main flurry of glitches, the HUBZone calculator is actually kind of difficult to use. It's better than it was. It's getting better all the time. But just to keep in mind, it occasionally fails to save. So you do all this work entering all your employee addresses, and then it'll just delete it. And it's a little bit confusing to use as well. It'll say things like no when it should say yes, and you just need to kind of click through. I fully believe all these issues will be resolved over time, and I do believe this website will and already is making it a lot easier. Believe it or not, the old HUBZone application was kind of a nightmare, to be honest. I'm not going to guide through the entire certification process today. We're just about kind of nearing the end of the presentation. We don't have enough time to do that, but instead I just want to give you an overview and a couple pointers. So first, you create an SBA account. You have to do a unique account here. If you have a vet cert or an SBA loan, you might already have an account. You've got to claim your business using your UEI and CAGE. If you don't know what those are, it's something from sam.gov and your bank account that you use with SAM. Beginning an application, make sure to choose HUBZone when you're going through the options, answer all the qualifying questions, fill out the individual questionnaire, complete and save the HUBZone calculator, upload all the required documentation, including the HUBZone supplemental information, and it will tell you what it needs based on your entries, and then invite any other contributors that are required and have them complete the questionnaires, and then you sign and submit, and then you wait. So here's some pointers. That's the overview. I know it's pretty quick, but here's the pointers. If you reach a different SBA portal when trying to sign in, as I mentioned, you might already have an SBA login, and it may be years and years out of date. So you can sign in on that page, or if you don't remember your username and password, username is not usually just your email address. It's different, so that my certification, it should be your my SBA certification should be your email address, but once it brings you to this old SBA portal, it has a different username. So you can click reset username, remind username, forgot password, etc., and just get in however you can. The process will then usually misdirect you to the wrong website that just has vet certain SBA loan options, nothing HUBZone or WOSB or anything like that. To resolve that, just close that window, go back to certifications.sba.gov in the same browser, and then log in once again. That should solve it. Usually solves for my clients. Some other pointers here: only claim the business if you're the qualifying owner. So if you're just the on the sales team and you've been tasked to go through this, don't do that. Wait to get someone in. They can assign you as a delegate afterwards. Make sure you enter all owner information adding up to 100%. So whether by individuals or entities, they need email addresses, contact information, names, all that, roles, all that stuff for all the owners. And all owners will need to fill in their own individual questionnaires. This process is also confusing and has been glitchy in the past. They will receive these invite emails only once you get to the sign and submit page, after the documentation, after everything else. It's the very last page. They will then need to each create their own SBA accounts if they don't already have them, and use the invite codes they get in the email in order to link with your application. So there's nothing to click in the emails, the invite emails they receive. You'll just have to kind of go through that. I'm not going to go through this too much, but this is what the HUBZone calculator kind of looks like. You're going to have a list of location, the UEIs associated, addresses, and it's going to tell you if it's in a HUBZone or not. If you get to a page, and this is how you edit your employees here, you're going to give them addresses. If you get to a page where it says counted as a HUBZone employee, no, and that looks troubling to you, just try continuing to the next page and keeping to enter more information and see if that resolves it. All these fields are kind of auto-populating and they're all fitting together, and it's kind of like assembling a jigsaw puzzle that you have to do all at once. So you'll hopefully by the end it'll make sense. We can work with you on it if it's not making any sense. So why are some applications rejected? Not meeting the basic requirements, 35% principal office. Make sure to count your employees correctly, look at those definitions. The number one issues I see are with supporting documentation. So the dates on payroll records, utility bills, they're not compliant, they're not recent, they're not the period they need. Company name is missing from utility bills. You can't go back and add it retroactively. You need to have everything ready before you start this process. The documents have inconsistent information from your bylaws, your operating agreements, etc. They don't validate information in the application you submitted. They can't establish clear ownership and control based on the docs you submit. And they're pretty strict with these. It really depends on the reviewer you get. Other mistakes include not responding to email requests from the SBA. So they might just give you a couple business days to respond to a request that has a lot more documentation, or they need you to update the documentation. If you don't respond to those, your application is going to be sent back. So make sure to check your spam filter. If you're out of town, have someone else check your email. And this is a note I just want to say, like, it could be a mistake to think aloud with an SBA reviewer. So it's not an adversarial relationship, but be careful what you're saying to them. If you're just kind of brainstorming about whether you have a certain document, it's possible for them to misinterpret what you say, and they can actually reject your application, send it back, which is a non-reversible process. So just think about when you're talking with the SBA reviewer that you just want to avoid any misunderstandings. And then you need to understand affiliation. We're not going to go back in that today. It's in that same CFR chapter that I told you about. And of course, biggest mistake you could make would be not working with your local Apex. I know I'm biased. It's not just us, but there's a ton of other Apexes. You need to let the SBA know. I've told you this already. If anything changes that might affect your certification status, you need to redo it every year. That's pretty important. So it's a good idea to communicate with your employees, have it in your business structure to talk about all of this. And then here's just some resources where you can find HUBZone projects. SAM.gov is the main one. You can search for HUBZone by set-aside type, by goals, etc. USA Spending and FPDS or past spend research. And then if you want agency forecasts to see how much they're identifying for upcoming HUBZone opportunities, you can find that at acquisition.gov. All right, that is it. Thank you so much. And I am, of course, here for questions. And I think Amanda's going to talk a little bit about some events that we have coming up.
Absolutely. Just really quickly before we get into questions, I wanted to let you know about some of our other upcoming events you may be interested in attending. We'll be going over government-led innovation programs, including SBIR, STTR, DPA Title III, and more on June 5th. We will also be joined by California DGS on June 11th for an in-person How to Do Business with the State of California workshop in Eureka, California. So if you are local or if you feel like traveling, we would love to have you join us up here. And then to round out June, we will be hosting Subcontracting 101, giving you the basics and all of the tools that you need to successfully subcontract on a government contract. And with that, I'll pass it back to James for the Q&A. We do have a number of questions in the Q&A, and I'll go ahead and let James sift through those.
Beautiful. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, Naomi's asking, these are great questions, by the way, guys, thank you. And we're gonna go through them pretty quickly. If we have interns that come and go seasonally or surge staffing, can they be considered in the employee count? Of course, with the understanding that they were working the minimum 4 weeks prior to the application. So if your employees are coming and going and it's complicated like that, I mean, if you qualify for the certifications, if they worked average 10 hours per week in the 4 weeks previous to the application. But this would raise a red flag for me because if they leave, you need to notify the SBA. If you no longer have 35% or your principal office location changed because of the numbers are switched around, you need to notify the SBA and they have the right to take away your HUBZone application. So I really think if you wouldn't be eligible without these seasonal employees and folks that are coming and going, then you should probably think long and hard about whether you want to do the HUBZone, or if there's a way that you can satisfy the HUBZone on a more secure footing, folks that are going to be there more regularly. It's not impossible if you're constantly rehiring folks that are in HUBZones. It's not impossible to do with surge staffing and seasonal employees, but it just makes your life a little bit harder if you're relying on them. Do your employees, do you need permission to use documentations for certification? Your employees' permission. That is between you and your employee. It doesn't have much to do with us or SBA, so I'll let you figure that out on your own. I would say good idea to check with them. They probably gave you their driver's license or something like that for the process, so they should be aware. Anonymous attendees asking, what do you do if you would need 2.45 employees to equal 35%? Well, so you're asking what if it's a fraction in order, well, you're not going to have 2.45 employees. An employee is a whole person. It's never a part of a person, regardless of the hours you work. So it sounds like you would need 3 employees. If that's the case, then you need 3 employees. There's no meeting in the middle there. If you have 2 employees, one of them's in a HUBZone, one of them's not, that does satisfy the requirement because you've at that 50% level. So I hope that's clear. I'm not sure if there's a different question there. You're welcome to re-ask. Okay, Naomi's asking again to confirm if a large number of employees are based at the principal office in a HUBZone but work remotely, the status still based on the employee's home address, not the office they're based in? Is that understanding correct? So it depends. There's 2 different things, right? There's the residency requirement, which is 35%, and then there's the principal office requirement. So the principal office needs to be in a HUBZone. The principal office is where most employees actually work, go and spend their time. And so you need where's the greatest number of employees that are actually working. If you don't have a brick and mortar location at all, that can be difficult for meeting this requirement. But if you do, and there's people working there, but you also have remote employees that are based out of there, the SBA doesn't care. Like, based out of there doesn't mean anything if they're not actually doing work there. So those would just not be counted towards the principal office requirement. So it's important to distinguish the principal office requirement and the 35% residency. You can satisfy one and not satisfy the other. So where these are still counted as employees, even if they're doing remote work. You just need to make sure that they are in HUBZones. They will count as employees towards that 35% calculation. But if they're not working in the principal office, or if they're not working in a brick and mortar office, it won't count towards principal office. There used to be some COVID era rules that kind of bent the rule on that, but they ended that a couple years ago. So hopefully that helps. Okay, Karen is asking, can sole member LLC members who have no other employees and maintains principal office and HUBZone qualify? Sure. Yeah, you can do that, absolutely. So there's no rules, regulations against one person companies. In fact, it makes it a lot simpler. Karen's asking again, due to the nature of our professional service businesses, sole members work out of co-working offices in a hub zone? No. So remember in the beginning, I said you need to own or lease. The government is not too friendly on co-working spaces, whether it's SAM.gov or SBA. So you need to provide some sort of utility documentation or a deed or release, or I mean, actually you need both in order to show that this brick and mortar location belongs to you and ideally is not shared. Okay, are rental properties with businesses operating on-site qualify, meet percentage of requirements? Rental properties with businesses operating on-site qualify. I'm not sure I understand that question, WC, sorry about that. Mark's asking about how to search for contracts. That's a whole separate contract. We actually have a ton of webinars about that, market research, contract compliance, you name it. So we have a ton of resources on that. This is not the place here. Let me just read this question. Another question, how can we confirm if it's the correct info was submitted on the application, the status of submission with the current website glitches, like clicking yes and it registers no incorrectly? You can review, you can see what you submitted. You can look at your application after you submit it. You should get an email. It should say submitted pending review. Regarding the glitches, there's no easy way around it. If the website's going to glitch and tell you one thing when another thing's true, there's nothing I can say can really change that. Best practice would be just do a thorough review every time, maybe save it, log out, log back in, make sure it's all working, and let's just cross our fingers and hope that the web developers fix these problems before too long. Okay. If native owned, can you still agree to obtain the 35% by the time work starts? Though I don't know what work starts. So they're looking at the 4-week period prior to certification application. You don't need a HUBZone contract or a contract at all in order to qualify for this. So they're looking retroactively a 4 weeks period for that first initial application, and then to maintain certifications, they'll do a similar process every year. So there are some different rules for native owned firms, but they make it more lenient, but I don't think that, I'm not sure that that's relevant for what you're talking about here. Anonymous attendees, can I do HUBZone certification if my principal office is in a hub zone, have no EEs, only use contractors for projects? So I'm assuming you're saying you have no employees. Well, hopefully you would be an employee if you, as the owner, if you literally have no legitimate employees, meaning, I mean, if all of your subs are all of your contractors are bona fide independent contractors and not considered by the SBA to be employees, then you would those would just be excluded from the principal office calculation and the employee calculation. They're just not employees. So we basically just ignore them. If that's true, it's not necessarily the case that we should ignore them, because maybe the SBA actually considers them employees if they're doing the kind of employee work under your supervision. But let's hope that there's at least one person at your principal office. Otherwise, you don't have a principal office. So you need at least one employee. Sonia is asking, can we change the email we use for SBA portals? I believe so. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. You just go into your profile and change it. And you can also set up forwarding. You're saying you're missing emails and things like that. So you can set up forwarding to and alerts and things, all kinds of different tricks you can do in Outlook and Gmail and things like that to make sure you never miss an email from the SBA. All right. That was kind of a blitz, but it's 11:01 and we got through all the questions. We are here with whatever you guys may need. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Absolutely. And as you exit out of this webinar, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. If you have but a moment, we would appreciate any feedback you have about this event. I saw a couple suggestions in chat that I would love to see in these feedback surveys, because we really do present these topics in these webinars for you. And the only way that we can do it better for you is if you let us know. So if you do have a moment, we would appreciate your feedback. And I want to take a moment to thank James for a wonderful presentation, a lot of information to cover, a lot of good questions. Thank you so much for presenting this.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for coming.
And thank you so much, Heather, the SBA Sacramento District Director, for joining us today. The SBA is here to support you and your business and your goals. Thank you for being here, Heather.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Great presentation, James. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Heather. That means a lot.
Fantastic. And of course, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you got a lot of good information, and do remember you'll be getting the recording as well as the slides for this event within 1 week of today. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.